This is an endurance road bike and is what we think most riders will be happiest riding on tarmac bike rides. It's comfortable, it's got relaxed geometry, it's got space for lovely wide tyres, and the only real downside is that, well, it's a bit slow. Or is it? Because I think that most amateur cyclists will be hard pressed to find any real world speed difference on this compared to most race bikes. But don't just take my word for it. Today, we're going to try and find out. You might think that to try and prove my point, I'm going to be using some really fancy endurance road bike like the Pinarello Dogma X that you might have seen me riding in a video the other day. But no, the powers that be told me that in the name of fairness, I'm going to be using this. The Rysel NCR CF carbon fibre, a bike that currently has a price tag of £2,000 on the Decathlon website. This particular model has a very blue full carbon fibre frame and fork. It's got a SRAM Apex 1x group set, which is electronic. It's got Mavic Axiom wheels, and it's got 28mm Hutchinson Fusion 5 performance tyres. But it does have space for up to 35mm rubber. To prove my point that endurance bikes aren't any slower, what I wanted to do was race this NCR against a more race-orientated bike that costs about £2,000. However, the producers said that if I really believed that it wasn't any slower than a race bike, then I should put it up against my very own Specialized Alley Sprint. My Alley is a bike designed for speed, and to be honest, I chose it purely for performance rather than anything to do with comfort. Now, to level the playing field a little bit, I will be using the same set of wheels on both bikes. So, what actually is the difference between the two bikes? Why is one of them called a race bike and the other an endurance bike? This might seem obvious, but hopefully we're attracting lots of new people to the sport, so for their benefit, it's well worth a brief explainer. An endurance bike sits in the road category. It's generally considered to be something that is designed for comfort and efficiency over longer rides. And for this reason, these bikes are very popular with recreational and club road riders. Compared to a race bike, it has a higher front end, a shorter reach, a longer wheelbase, and the front wheel is further out in front of you, which makes it less agile, but also less twitchy. If you'd like the full rundown of the differences between the two, then click the video card popping up on your screen right now. My route is about 10 kilometers long. I'm going to do it twice on this bike, and then I'm going to swap over, change over the wheels, and do it twice on the race bike. And then we're going to see which one's quickest. Right then, effort number one, let's go. Now, I realise that this isn't the most scientific test ever conducted, but I do think that we are in the real world, and if one bike is going to be loads quicker, then we will be able to see that. So I'm now aboard the endurance bike, and despite never having ridden it before, it is really quite easy to get along with. It is quite noticeable how far in front of me the front wheel is, and on descents, that kind of makes it feel a little bit like a gravel bike. And before we get into an argument of, oh, Jamie doesn't believe in aero, I do. I really quite like aero, but we don't ride in wind tunnels, and a lot of us don't race, and aero really only seems to make a difference on fast roads, not when you're traveling at 25 kph down a bumpy lane. So a lot of the latest endurance bikes are really actually quite stiff. They've managed to find that perfect balance of stiffness and compliance. It's not exactly what I'd call agile, but there we go. One bike done, on to the next one. Right then, I've switched over onto the race bike. Let's see if this one's any quicker. Now, my initial impressions are that it definitely feels quicker. The steering's a little bit livelier, it feels perhaps a little bit stiffer out the saddle, and also I'm further over the crank, so I'm sat further forwards, which I think feels it feels racier. Whether that actually has any impact on the real life speed, we're gonna have to find out. Now, I'm well used to riding this bike, but on descents, it can feel like you're a bit over the front end. That might not be what a beginner would want, or indeed anyone who's actually just going for comfort over speed. One argument that could mean that this isn't much faster is when we went and did that bike fit and I got told I should have my bars a bit higher, I asked, would it make me slower? And the answer was no. Your body won't actually change position. It will just be your arms moving relative to the bars. So with that in mind, if I'm only got a certain amount of flexibility, then it shouldn't really matter whether my bars are up here, down here. All what really matters is where my body position is, and if I'm not flexible enough to get my back any lower, then lowering my bars won't help me do that. Right. So, is the endurance bike slower? Well, on our 10k route, yes, it was fractionally slower, but perhaps by less than you might think. It's worth remembering that over a longer distance, when comfort and fatigue start playing a part, the endurance bike is probably the quicker options for the vast majority of riders. This is particularly true if you're not super flexible. It's very easy to want to copy the pros who ride super aggressive race bikes, but most of them probably spend more hours in the week stretching than we do out riding. Of course, you could try and get that more relaxed position on a race bike. You could have a shorter stem and leave a load of spacers under it. But really, the more sensible option would be to buy a bike that's designed for the position that you should be in. Luckily, endurance bikes are no longer the ugly ducklings of the cycling industry. There's now plenty of choices of cracking looking machines, all available with the same spec as you'd get on a race bike, and they're not usually any heavier either. It's also worth pointing out that I was solo on all of my timed runs because I've got no friends. So I was facing the full force of the wind. If you ride in a group, then the difference between race bike and endurance bike is probably even less. Basically, we've all been suckered into thinking that race bikes are loads quicker, most likely because the pros ride them and the press releases of the latest and greatest speed machines always say it's 20 seconds faster and then another 1 minute faster for the next generation and so on. Well, maybe in a wind tunnel, I kind of doubt it, but in the real world, I don't think so at all. For the vast majority of riders, the endurance bike is the way to go, whether you're interested in speed or not. Oh, and the other thing I like about endurance bikes is they're much easier to track stand on because your toes are less likely to get stuck on the front tyre. Let us know your thoughts on endurance road bikes down in the comments section below, as well as whether the results of our tests surprised you. If you want to see 3 of the very best endurance road bikes go head to head, or one pitted against a bike from a few decades ago, then use the cards popping up now. As always, if you enjoyed this content, then don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel for lots more bike stuff, and we'll see you next time.